Then I'm gonna check. Am I live? All right. It says I'm live here. Let me check the YouTube page. Okay, it says that I'm live on YouTube. Let me check the Facebook page. I have to check all these places. Okay, we are live now. So if y'all want to go to my Facebook page, Janet Chalmers is my Facebook page. Do it on my Facebook personal profile and not the business, and that way you'll be able to share it to our to your own personal Facebook page, and all of your other friends and families will be able to see it. So we'll just give it a few minutes, and I want to invite people into this conversation. So for everybody that is jumping on and that will be jumping on, I just want to thank you real quick for joining this conversation, and ask that you please share this video to anyone that you may know that may be dealing with depression, anxiety, suicidal thoughts, grief, or just even the anxiety of going back to school, period. That's teachers, administrators, students, parents, just so that we can, kind of open up this conversation and prepare students and teachers for the upcoming school year. Now, I know that some people are already in school, but again, it would definitely help those folks that's already done started, just because, and we're at the very beginning. So give me a second. Let me find these questions, y'all. I'm so sorry. I should have had my iPad. So let me find the questions and we are going to get started. All right, flow of questions. Okay. So we're gonna do it real quick as an icebreaker, and this is for everybody that's on the panel right now. We're gonna kind of break the ice, and then we're gonna go into introduction. Each one of you will introduce yourselves to the people that's going online, that's coming online. Just introduce yourselves and tell them who you are. What school you're with, what your position is, what school district that you are with, and all that good stuff. Just let the people know who you are. All right, here's the ice break, and I sent this to you guys. So, which break do you prefer? Summer break or the Christmas break? Now, those seem to be the two longest ones in the school year. Summer break or Christmas break?
Definitely
Anybody?
Christmas.
Definitely
Definitely Christmas.
Christmas.
Yeah, it's barely a summer break for me, um, with 1 month or 2 weeks off. So I like my Christmas break. Um, and for those who don't know me on the live, my name is Jasmine Chavan. I'm a licensed professional counselor in Spring Branch ISD. I am a student support counselor at the school. And this is my second year in Spring Branch ISD. Before that, I was at an elementary school for 2 years. So yeah, I'm a Christmas person.
Christmas break person. Okay. Thank you, Jasmine. Who's next? Anybody next?
Good evening, everyone. I'm Dr. Sharon Dellisbore. I am an assistant principal at Austin High School in Fort Bend ISD. This is my 29th year in education. And when you are an administrator, you go back early and you get out late. So my break that I enjoy most is Christmas break.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Sabrina Baldwin. I am a high school teacher at Lee County High School in Sanford, North Carolina. This is my 34th year in education. I teach early childhood education 1 honors class and child development. I truly love what I do. I love meeting and greeting the students every day. But my favorite time of break is Christmas break, because during the summer you have, with everybody say you have a long 2 months, but it's not, because there's a lot of workshops you got to attend, conferences you have to attend. At Christmas time, it's like shut down, start back. So,
All right, Mike. What about you?
I'm Michael Hall. As you can see, I have coach in my title. I'm a head baseball coach at Westbury High School here in HISD here in Houston. I'm also a baseball instructor with the Astros Youth Academy. And I kind of agree. My favorite break is the Christmas break. For me, in the summer, I really don't truly get a break. I just get to wake up 30 minutes later. So So throughout the summer, I'm doing camps with the Astros. So I'm still working on Christmas break. I really get a chance to relax and spend time with family. So I enjoy that Christmas break. And if we're just being perfectly honest, I think that Christmas break is at the perfect time. We're at a point where I think the students are fatigued and teachers are fatigued as well. And it kind of gives us a refreshing break. That way we can come back recharged for that second semester and finish out the year strong.
That's awesome. Well, I'm gonna say this as a person that looks outside of the teachers, um, I and the students, and I'm glad that y'all said what you said because most of y'all said Christmas breaks because I used to work for a school district and I worked in the IT department. So I was at the administration building. I worked, but we had to go out to all the schools, and even whenever I went to the schools during the summertime, teachers and principals were still there and doing training or whatever the case may be. So I get it because it was even though we were on summer break or the kids were on summer break, it was they're like y'all were always still working. So let me tell y'all something, and this is my personal opinion. Uh, Teachers, schools, administrators, and staff are some of the hardest working people that I know and do not get the recognition that they deserve. You guys have to deal with children every single day, good children and bad children. I thought about going to be a teacher, and I had to go out to a campus one day in the second grade, and I was like, whoo, that changed my mind real quick. You got to have a gift. It is a gift to be a teacher. So thank you all for everything that you do when it comes to what you do in a classroom and outside of the classroom every single day, because I know that even when you leave the classroom, your work is still not done. Whether you're grading papers and being a parent at the same time, grading papers, being a parent, being a coach at the same time, grading papers, being a parent and counseling, all of that, even after the hours. So thank you for everything that you do. And everybody that is online and listening, y'all give them a hand clap, give them a thank you, or whatever the case may be, because they truly, truly, truly deserve it. So let's go ahead and jump into this conversation. This first question, for all of you that do not know, this conversation is about the transition going from the summer, the summer break or Christmas break, whatever the case may be, and trying to determine whether or not there is a mental transition that needs to happen with all of this. Because we're getting ready back to school. We have the school book drive, the back to school drive, people, shopping for school clothes and backpacks and all of that stuff. Great that all of that is needed. But Jasmine, I want to direct this question to you. Is there a mental transition that needs to happen when going back to school? And that's for student, teachers, everybody. Is there a mental transition that needs to happen?
Yeah, definitely for everybody. But I'll focus on the students because even myself as a counselor, like I need to have a mental transition to have the students back on campus. Like we were saying before, we've been on campus doing the things, preparing for them to come, but it's really different when they actually are on campus because it's a huge influx of people. And then for them, what I noticed during the summer transition, we just had a camp for our incoming ninth graders into the high school. A lot of them mentioned that one of the things that they're nervous about is making new friends or not having the same friends that they did in middle school, even though that they're coming to the same school with them, because there's this notion or feeling that high school changes your relationship. And like I've spoken to them one on one in groups, kind of mentioned like, well, life changes you. Like you grow up, you meet new people, and it's okay to go from one cohort to the next. And also, there are some students on the other hand who are just like, well, I don't know anybody coming in. And that's why we have this camp before everybody comes in. It's just for the ninth graders where you get to meet your teachers, you get to have a tour of the school, so it's less anxiety, less nervousness on where do I go? Do I know anybody? Because I've met some people, or I at least know who I can talk to. And I always mention to them, like, you met a teacher. You can always talk to them. We're all friendly, for the most part. Like, don't catch us in the morning, but we're all friendly. So just come talk to us. But I do want to mention that after the summer has started and going into Christmas break, I know there's a huge transition where some kids don't want to go home. And that's real important to know, like, what's going on there. Like, are there safety concerns? Like, what's going on? And just making sure they have somebody that they can talk to. So me as a counselor, I definitely try to provide that space. But if they don't want to talk to me, just a trusted adult off campus so that we can make sure they have the right contact, just so they can have like a crisis line while they're at home if they need it. We give it to all the students, but those who express concern about going home for the Christmas break, especially them.
Okay, so a lot of things that happen with children before they even start going to school is they're starting to have the anxiety of, whether or not they're going to have new friends, or whether or not they're going to get the right teacher, or whether or not even if they're going to be liked. So that's, so how do we get children and teachers, how do you start making that mental transition of going back to school from summer break? And when should you start, trying to basically set them up to start back successfully? So how does that, what does that look like to prepare kids and the teachers? What did that look like for y'all to prepare mentally to transition from a long break to back to school?
I want to say changing your physical space, like getting a physical routine in, definitely helps train the brain on like, okay, so this is a habit that I'm starting to form. And they say it takes about 21 days to break a habit. So like maybe 3 weeks before school, or if you want to really get up there, a month before school to say, hey, um, let me start waking up early at least and going to bed. Like just giving myself a routine in my sleep schedule. Let me start packing my lunch for the day. Let me start going out. I don't know, getting some activity instead of just being in front of the computer or the TV. Just switching the schedule up where it's conducive to school environment rather than a home environment to get you like, oh, okay, like, I'm not feeling groggy at 6 a.m.
Okay. Anybody else want to chime in on that? Especially like, because Mike, I know you have kids and small kids. So what does that look like, for you? How did you start preparing, like your son for was he kindergarten?
Yes, he just started kindergarten this past Wednesday. So it's still a lot of trial and error, and we're trying to figure things out as our oldest is just now entering uh, real school as we're. So he's really in school now is what we're telling him. But we started about a week ago. Well, a week before he went into kindergarten, we started getting him back out of his lack of summer routine and back into his routine, getting him in bed by 8:30, making sure on our end we're packing his lunch and we're preparing for him for the next morning. That way we can eliminate some of the hustle and bustle that we have in the mornings. Unplugging him from a lot of electronics a lot earlier and getting him in a space where he's doing workbooks and things of that nature again, and just getting his brain back ready to sit in the classroom and learn and soak up a lot of information. So as a first time elementary school parent, it's like I said, it's still a lot of trial and error, but I think he went into it with a lot of enthusiasm, and even after his first half week, he's still enthused. So I think we did preparing him and just unplugging him from a lot of those summer habits and getting him back in tune to the school year.
Okay. Go ahead, Sabrina.
I'll just like chime in a little bit on
Summer,
that.
I don't know if I'm logging in or lagging in and out. We can't fully
Yeah, it
unplug
is.
in the summer.
Yeah, Mike, you're going in and out. Is coming in and out. It's going in and out. Go ahead. Go ahead. I'm gonna say. Go ahead, Sabrina.
Okay, I'd like to chime in on that to say I do have a great grandson who is starting kindergarten this year, and he's with me now. He just had a surgery, adenoids and tonsils out. Okay, Sam. So he's with me today. Um, what this school district has done for the last 2 years, there is a summer bridge program. So kindergartens they were able to go to their prospective school, and they had 4 days from 8 o'clock to 11:30 to visit the school, and they sat in class, they toured the school, met new friends, and then they also did that with the sixth graders who were starting middle school. Then they did it at the high school with the ninth graders. So it's sort of to accomplish their fears, because I could hear my grandson, he was talking, go all the way to school. I took him the first day, he was going to make new friends, and if anyone bullied him, he was going to tell the teacher. But he was so excited about going, and that sort of helps them to overcome that first day. They even rode the bus. So
Mhm.
so when school starts, and then they stagger them in. They just don't come every day. Then and then on the fifth day, all of them starts to come. So they get a chance to familiarize themselves with the school, with the teachers. Um, in high school, I know because I see it every day. Tomorrow would be our first day, and so a lot of the ninth graders had gone from being the oldest one on campus to the new kids on the block. And every year
Mhm.
they're very fearful. But in order to prepare them for that day, even when they get there, as a classroom teacher, you have to be very intentional from the first day and be consistent on the first day, so that they would know, and just go out of your way to help them any way that they can. And you have to, and even with the parents. So we have meet the parents night. Some come, some don't. But with freshmen, their parents are eager for them to start high school, and then so they're eager to start high school. So just have to be very patient with them, because they're gonna get lost, especially if you have a big school such as ours. It's a lot of ground to cover to get from one class to the other within 6 minutes. So but yeah, you have to be very patient with them, but consistent. So
And
Okay.
there's a
So, Doctor.
transition, there's a transition for the adults also. So
Yeah.
a lot of times in different states, uh salaries for teachers aren't that great. So there are teachers that are having side hustles during the summertime. We're all, have families. And so there's that transition that happens also. So when it's time to go back to school for a teacher, that mindset has to shift on, okay, now I'm going back to my students in my classroom. And so most districts, they come back a week ahead of time. We do professional development. We take the time to get to know our new staff if we have a lot of new staff. But there's also that transition that happens for us, because our schedules change depending on what the needs are for our families and for our lives.
I agree. I totally agree. That's what I was just getting ready to ask you about, sharing about adults and teachers. Now, is there, and Mike, you kind of chimed in on this a few minutes ago, and Sabrina, you did too. As far as parents, as far as parents are concerned, with this transition from the summer break to kids going back to school, is there a level also of anxiety there from the parents, from the kids being at home then now going back to school, or is there a level of relief, or is it both? That
Uh,
could be a question for anybody. Go ahead, Mike.
I can say it's not a level of relief for me yet because my kids aren't of the age where they can stay home by themselves. So they're going through summer camp all summer in some shape or form. Um, but I can see where it could be relief for a parent, especially if in this day and age where a lot of parents are working from home and the kids are at home with them and they're responsible for providing uh, 2 meals throughout the day that they may not have to do during the school year, where a kid eats breakfast and lunch at school. So it's a lot more taxing on a parent. I can see that side as well. But for me, the anxiety does set in a little bit just because it's like we spoke about as a group. It's a brand new setting for my kid. It's a larger environment than say a 3 PK that we're paying out of pocket for that may have 90 kids in the entire building. My son's now at a school that has 800 kids. So that's a huge adjustment for a 5-year-old kid. My wife and I both share a little anxiety about whether he's going to make friends or not, or whether he's going to be accepted, or are people going to be nice to him, and is he going to be nice to others? Those kind of things do create a little anxiety. But like we always say, we leave it up to God, and we know that we raised our son to be a good young man, and we hope that everything goes well.
Anybody else want to chime in real quick?
Well, I say too with the parents, you hear a lot of talk, and then that is we have a parent portal where they can stay in contact with the teachers and everything. Because, like you say, in high school, especially with ninth graders, I hear parents with anxiety because it's a whole new different ball game than the middle school because they have that fear of their child getting in with the right group. Um, and they know their consequences are a little tougher. They know that classes are a little rigored. So there's an anxiety with the parents. I want my child to excel. And then the parents have to sometimes accept that my child is doing, they may have a C when they used to get an A, but sometimes that C is an exceptional and excellent because that is that child doing the best that they can in the class that they take. We don't always want our children just do to be mediocre or just being or take the easiest class that they can. You want them to be challenged. So in high school, those challenges come. And sometimes that C to that child is my very, very best. And sometimes with parents, it's hard for them to accept that because their child has been that A student. But then that anxiety, and then we come with the mental part with that student and saying, I know I'm doing my best, but my parent don't accept that. So that I hear that a lot from some of the parents. I just want my child to be better than all the rest. I want my child to do this. They want to buy them the best of clothes. They just want them to be accepted. And sometimes it comes when that group that you think that child should be in may not be in that group, but that child is doing his best. They say, "Oh, well, it's just 2 or 3 friends." And they go like, well, why you don't have other friends? Maybe that's all that child wants and can be able to handle at that time. So sometimes we have to let and pick and choose our battle with our children because is that child doing the best and being respectful and all that, we have to be able as a parent to accept that child, that's that child's best. Because we as a parent, we don't always do our very best either. So
Amen.
And
So
another
go
part
ahead,
of that
Sharon.
is the safety aspect of going back to school.
Ooh, I was going to ask you about
COVID
that.
and Uvalde and so many of the things that are going on right now do cause that anxiety for parents and for students in regards to safety in our schools. So it's really as an administrator, we take pride in trying to build a climate and a culture within our campuses to ensure that people feel safe. Not only do you just feel safe in regards to physical safety, being in the building, safety in being able to take risks in classrooms, feeling safe to be able to ask questions and to be able to be received. And so there are a lot of aspects of safety that cause that anxiety for students and for parents that we really work hard within our climate and culture to try to cultivate so that students can be the best person that they can be and develop and learn about themselves and grow and be who God desires for them to be.
You know what? I was just getting ready to ask about that too because we've seen so many you know, Uvalde's, so many mass shootings, um, things like that. I mean, just down here in Houston, just getting started. You're already seeing fights on buses with the bus driver and the student, and so many different things like that. And that's part of the safety aspect of it.
Mhm.
And even myself, with my grandson being 7 years old, I do sit back and think sometimes, is this going to happen to my grandson? Is this going to happen at his school? So, with that being part of the anxiety of going back to school from parents, and Jasmine, maybe you can answer this question, even from a student perspective. Also, um, is that addressed? Is that in any way, form, or fashion addressed at the beginning of the school year, as far as the safety aspect, or just kind of, you know, hey, we know this happened at this school, but we have your safety in mind. This is what's going to happen. If something like this happen, because I see it on TV practicing, for something like that to happen. But how is that addressed? How do you relieve students from that? That's scary, from that anxiety part of starting back to school, because that's scary. That's not something we thought about when I was going back to school, but now it's almost like you can't help it. You can't help it. Jasmine, how do you address that with students?
So for me, as a counselor, we're addressing it on an individual basis. Sadly, we haven't seen it addressed widespreadly, and that's even worse. But on a widespread, like the whole school body is it's being addressed with, and that's what I want to see more of. Um, Action and education being taken place as soon as things are happening, instead of waiting months later until you see one individual student is probably having a hard time with it. And then you pull them aside, you have a conversation. But going into the classrooms or having meetings with everybody so that it's actually being addressed. So I would like to see more of that. It's just not happening at our schools right now. And
Mm.
I'm glad that we're having this conversation because um, I like that they take suggestions as well. They're always open to like, okay, what ideas do we have? Me as a counselor, I'm always bringing in different programs to come and talk to students. So about healthy decision making. I'm at a high school, so we always talk to them about, hey, your prefrontal cortex is not developed right now, and this is probably why you're making this bad decision. However, if you talk to an adult before you make this decision, just to like run it by somebody who may know a little bit better or who's been through this
Mm-hmm.
similar situation. So, like I said, a lot of students individually have had a concern or mental challenges about what's going on in the community. And so we do bring programming in to talk about those things. I just wish I could see more of it.
And
Does anyone?
I like what Jasmine just said about bringing in programs. One of the things that we always say on our campus is that education is our passion, but safety is our first priority. And so, one of the things that we do is we really um, communicate with the kids that if they see something, to say something. That is like first line. And in order to do that, you got to build rapport with kids. And so, we have
Mm.
a climate of care on our campus where we're showing compassion, we're appreciating our students, we're building rapport, and we're encouraging them. Because when you build relationships with students, students will tell you what's going on. And so that is really a huge piece in helping to build that safe kind of climate that we have within the campuses that I work on.
Okay. Okay. Mike, you want to chime in, Sabrina?
There again, I was just the same. See something, say something, and you have to really earn trust that with the rapport with the students, so they know that you are someone that they can trust. Um, Last year it was like, uh, we were back and forth into our stadium because of bomb threats and things. And we have it's a small county. It's only two high schools here, and but it was still, it was it's there are evil people, and And then to come to find out, the calls were coming from right in within the school. So you know, you never know where. And so, and I'm so delighted that our school has gone the extra mile for security. Now, if you pass our school, you'll say like that school is just fenced in, but anybody, a thief that want to get in can get in anywhere. And my classroom was like right up a stairway, right at near a gate, and sometimes that bring a little anxiety with me. And they said, "Well, Miss Bauer, why you always keep your door locked? You're supposed to keep your door locked." This year they did make us take our where you can't see in our little windows on the door. They made us. We was putting up paper, and we had to take it down for the fire marshal So we had to take it down, and that sort of bring a little anxiety with me because somebody walk up, they can see you in the classroom.
Mhm.
But you know, not only with students, but the anxiety there with the teachers as well. You know, with all of this mass shooting going on, it's like, well, what are you gonna do if it happens at your school? What are you gonna do? And we have to stay calm in all manners and at all times. But you know, we have to, it is very, very important to, you don't have to be the student's best friend. You don't have to be you are not the friend, you're the teacher. But yet you have to be compassionate, you know, towards these students so they know that they can trust you.
Mhm.
I
Okay,
like to
I
add
get
on
it.
to I want to add on to that because even having a rapport relationship with the parents, because sometimes the students won't always tell you something and the parents hear it. And then they can come to you and say, well, you know, this is going on with another student at this school, or this is going on with my child. But they're
Mhm.
afraid to come talk to somebody about that. So like I think somebody mentioned having like parent night conferences with parents so you can build that relationship. Um,
Mhm.
calling home, texting home, just so they know who you are in a time of need, and they can reach out.
Okay. All right.
Just to
My.
speak further to the see something, say something. I've been on two campuses. Won't name those campuses. One where we actually had a student let an administrator know that hey, they seen someone with a fire on campus. Ended up not being any huge issue thereafter. Of course, at a high school, we have law enforcement on campus, so that issue was resolved pretty quick. And then, like Ms. Jasmine just spoke about having a report with the parents, we actually had a situation within the last 5 years on one of my campuses where we had a grandmother call the school and let the school know that their child may be on campus with a firearm. So the grandmother was aware that there was a firearm in the house, and that morning she let us know that the firearm was missing from the home.
Mhm.
Administration was able to get in place and get that kid removed from the building without anybody being harmed. So again, I think it's just it's a community effort overall. Like we all watch the news and we see the mass shootings that take place, which are all terrible. But it's a
Mhm.
community effort overall, and again, it starts with having relationships with those students, and those students
Mhm.
feeling comfortable enough to know or to let you know that hey, this may be going on today, or this may be going on campus, or I saw this. So it's just about
Mhm.
relationships.
I like what you said where you said that it is a community effort overall, because I honestly believe that. And I understand that, you know, when you're talking about having a relationship with the student and so that they will feel comfortable with coming to talk to you as a teacher, as an administrator, uh, does it start at home? Should it start at home?
Everything should start at home because truly your home is your first school. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
um, the thing is that just sadly enough, our families aren't the established families that we desire them to always be. And so schools have become so many more different institutions than just a place of learning. I mean, our schools are safe havens for kids. Like our schools are, sanctuaries for kids now. And we're not just educators, we're all social workers, we're all
Mm-hmm.
uh EMTs, we're all nurses, we're all counselors. Like we've had to take on so many hats because of just a lot of the dysfunction that's really taking place. And COVID has even caused even a greater divide, where it's so much more exposure to the mental concerns and the safety and the domestic violence and so many different things that have happened within the span of the past 3 years. But for so many kids, school is such a safe haven. That's why, as an educator, it has become even more so important that we become more compassionate to the students that we're serving, because there's so much more that is not taking place in the home where the parent is truly that first teacher.
Okay. I thought somebody else was going to chime in real quick. So before I'm going to go ahead and move on into the next question, because we now talking about some of the mental health challenges, and now you guys have already kind of hit on some of the mental health challenges that you see in the students and even the teachers as you go on into the school year. Anxiety was mentioned several times, depression. You even see, suicidal ideation and suicidal attempts in students. And I'm gonna tell you, one of the reasons why I had this, one of the reasons why I started this nonprofit organization was, for one, I deal with my own issues whenever it comes to mental health. But it took me educating myself about certain things with what I deal with. And then for two is because I was so, I'm not gonna say tired, but yeah, I was so tired of hearing that a 14-year-old, a 15-year-old, an 18-year-old, suicide was their only way out. And that's why I started having these conversations, so that it would provide a safe space to have talks. And if someone hear these conversations like what we're having now, then they may say, okay, you know what? I'm feeling anxiety about going back to school. Or I'm into the school years and I'm just not feeling okay. I need to talk to somebody. So basically, that's what these conversations are all about. So I'm just going to throw out a couple of numbers real quick. And these numbers are based off of high school children. And I think y'all are all high school. Yeah. All high school. Bina, Sharon, Mike, you high school too, right? Jasmine, you're high school?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So you're all high school. So this is based off the CDC. In 2021, more than 4 in 10, or 42% students felt persistently sad or hopeless, and nearly 1/3, or 29%, experienced poor mental health. In 2021, more than 1 in 5, or 22%, students seriously considered attempting suicide, and 1 in 10 attempted suicide. That's too many. 1 in 10, that's too many. Okay. Burnout rate. And this these numbers that I got from this burnout rate information was published just the 31st of May of this year. Almost half of K through 12 teachers feel burnout at work very often in a 2022 Gallup poll on occupational burnout. 44% of American K through 12 teachers reported feeling burnt out often, all the time. So my question is, and this is going to go, teachers and then administrators, I want you all to cover. As far as the teachers are concerned, when is it you started the school year and we've gotten off the exciting part? You're halfway through the first semester. That's what it's called, first part of the school year before Christmas break or whatever. Let's say August to October. You're almost there, and the excitement of going back to school starts to wear off. And this is, I want the teachers to kind of elaborate on the students, but when do you start to see a change in their mental awareness? Do you see a change in from then until that point in time? Are you seeing something in them mentally that says, "Hey, something is not right"? And I want the teachers to kind of talk about the students, what they see in the students. Even Jasmine can chime in on that. She's a student counselor, and I want Sharon, being the administrator, to kind of elaborate on what she see with the teachers. So if my teachers can kind of go ahead, and Jasmine, if you guys can go ahead and chime in on that. When do you start to see that kind of mental switch in the students?
Well, I could say, being there, in one of my classes, I have two blocks. Um, Around the October, they have sort of know their little circle of friends. And then when that circle of friends sort of have confrontations or disagreements, and then they push that one person aside, and you will know for a minute that something is going on in that circle of friends or with that circle of friends. By that time, they have established uh, um, they're good. They in the classes, and they're established what class I want to go to, what class I'm gonna try to skip. I have already established what teacher I can get by with what with. Uh, when I could, I mean, they do that right off. They're gonna like, oh, okay, then Miss Baldwin easy. So she's not challenging like I thought, and I heard she was. So okay, I believe she just sort of slacked a little bit, and that's on the teacher part. When you get to that point where you're like, okay, then I got to start, let me slack off a little bit. As soon as you let that little window open, they're going to slide right through that window. But now around that October, that after that first quarter, we have semester, but after that first quarter, you will see their grades are up. And soon thereafter, you're like, oh man, is Christmas ever going to get here? We ever going to get a break? And I think that's why it's so important. Now, in our school district, we had a hard time. We would start in August, and the students would not even get a break until November. And this year, they had put in some more work days, and
What?
that sort of helped. But we don't have those mental health days like some school does. So, but I think it's very, very important both for the teachers and for the students. So we can say, let me step back a minute and see where my students are. I always have to keep that point on. Let me make sure I keep up with their grades every day. Let me make sure that everybody every week we can't let them fall through the crack and say, oh, it's October. And Billy Bob doesn't even have but 2 grades. Billy Bob, I got to put my grades in as a teacher. You have to be consistent with these students. You got to be consistent with contacting parents when they don't miss that. You saw that student that went from being perfect attendance, and here middle of October, oh, Billy Bob done missed 4 days straight in a row. Let's call home and see what's that. She didn't get to the 4th day. So you have to really know, and that student have to feel that I can't miss Miss Baldwin's room because she's gonna call my parent. So you have to be really, really consistent, because if they see that a teacher slacks, they're gonna go right after. They're gonna see that, and they're gonna feel that. When they feel, they'll feel you out. So, but I think sort of on that October, because they know that's after the first quarter is getting ready to end. So I did good. So I need to breathe a little bit. But we have to be very, very consistent and intentional with these students, because this is no longer elementary. This is no longer middle school. You have one. This is the last step before life after public school or charter school. This is the before an adult life. So we really have to make sure that we keep up with them, making sure they're doing and knowing what their intentions are. What do you want to do after high school? We have to pour ourselves into these students and somewhat act like they're your own child. What do you want your child to do? What do you want this student? Because for a certain amount of time of the day, you that parent in that classroom. It ain't that I'm gonna be the teacher. I'm gonna wear the hat of the teacher for tomorrow, and then the next day I'm gonna wear the parent. No, it's what kind of hat I'm wearing right now, because that student need a right now teacher. So we have to really be very intentional with these students, or by December it's gonna be too late to see that child that was slipping, and you haven't paid attention to that child, and you don't know what
So,
mental health of that child
so
is.
what you just made a point. You said when that child is slipping. Is it because they're, I mean, I got the whole circle of friends, uh, Now they don't figure it out when they can skip school. Now they don't figure it out when they can run over Miss Baldwin. But they're slipping. So is it noticeable or is it questionable to you as a teacher that this child might be dealing with something else other than, something that their circle done broke up. Maybe they're, are they going through a stage of depression? Is that something that you can recognize, or is that something that you even try to get into with that student if you see that something is starting to change in their grade, in their attitude, in their personality, even whenever they come into the classroom? Is that something that you as a teacher can recognize in that student, Jasmine, as a counselor, that you recognize in that student when you're halfway before the Christmas break?
Yeah, I think a good thing, great thing that we have at our school is a referral system. So when a teacher, admin, or parent sees something in a child, like a behavioral change, or they know that their big life event just happened at home or in their life, or even at school, like a breakup, they refer them to talk to the counselor because I'm not in the classroom with them. I'm not able to see them. And sometimes I don't even have that relationship with them where they can come talk to me as yet. They know who I am, but they don't know, like, okay, well, can I come talk to her? So this referral system is really great. And what I hear a lot of is during that first semester, it's a lot of relational burnout. Like, we have homecoming the first 3 weeks that school, like after 3 weeks when school starts. So these ninth graders are just coming in. They're like, okay, I need to find a homecoming date. I need to make sure I have friends. All of this, like, they're really worried about this. And
Wow.
some of them are, breaking up with people left and right. So this is a huge pressure and burnout point for them in the first semester.
Oh,
And
wow.
with testing in October, they're like, okay, my grades, like, I'm not ready for this test. And this is like a huge one. My grades are going to go home. What are my parents going to say? So I see it's, if I have to make a percentage, it's like 95% relationship, 5%
Wow.
school. Like, they're mainly
Wow.
focused on relationship with their peers and forming romantic relationships. And so a lot of what I'm doing in the first semester of school is really trying to coach them on healthy relationships, healthy decision making, individuality, just making the right choices, knowing when it's the right choice, who you can talk to ask if it's the right choice, like somebody
Mm-hmm.
who a trusted adult.
Mm. Mike, you want to chime in?
I was just gonna say real quick though, but another part of what Jasmine was saying is just social
Okay.
media. Um, all the pressures that they deal with encountering social media, and all of the negativity and the false images that they're seeing and they're perceiving, and they're bringing that into those relationships too. So social media has played a huge part in how we
Mm-hmm.
deal with kids mentally and discipline wise.
Mm. I can see that. I can definitely see that. They feel like that becomes these influencers on social media, that becomes their idol
Mm-hmm.
almost. Trying to live up to that hype,
Yep.
hoping that it's going to bring them to better relationships in school or whatever the case. They become that popular person or whatever. So I can totally see that, Sharon. I can totally see that. Go ahead, Mike.
I guess I'll just stay on kind of topic with the social media thing. I think age wise, I'm in a kind of a tricky spot. I got to college when Facebook really became popular. And now I'm seeing kids in the hallways doing TikTok challenges instead of being in class and things like that. So social media definitely has a big role. I guess from the coach's standpoint, I see student athletes. I think burnout happens a lot sooner with student
Mm,
athletes. If you look at football or volleyball players, they've been in camp for at least the last 3 weeks. So even before we step foot on campus for classes, they've already been back in school mode and been really outside in the heat or having 2-a-day type practices every day. So that burnout may come a little earlier for them. Also, speaking of student athletes' point of view, um, grades and progress reports mean a lot more to them. Whereas a progress report for a uh, a non-student athlete kind of just lets them know where they are academically. A progress report for a student athlete could potentially be either gaining eligibility to get back on the field or losing eligibility to get back on the field at that first quarter grading period. So that's a lot more pressure on those kids. One thing I've seen some kids who are, and I'm guilty of being a student athlete who was pretty much driven by performing well academically to stay on the field. That was my driving force. I have no problem saying that as an adult. But you see some student athletes who either lose eligibility because they didn't perform well in the classroom, and then they're completely done with school because they can't play a sport. Or you see on the flip side, you see a kid who's driven by it, but they have to work so hard to get out of the hole to get back on the field that they kind of lose focus on just balance. So that can create a lot more anxiety as well. But just to go back to the starting point, I think around that late October, early November time, you start seeing students burn out. And it varies from student to student as well. If you have a student who's truly enthused and motivated by just the educational piece of what school offers, you may not see them burn out as much. Now, they may have some anxiety, they may have some depression based on their performance in the classroom, but you're striving in the classroom. Whereas you see, in my case, I taught seniors for the most part last year. You see seniors who are seeking a trade, or they're not looking to go to a four-year university. That school piece is no longer that important to them. So you see them burn out a lot faster. So as educators, as administrators, as counselors, we kind of have to find a way to keep that carrot in front of them, keep them motivated so they don't hit that wall and crash and burn. But again, it kind of varies. But October, you start seeing kids kind of wind down. That's why we all have to thank God for that Thanksgiving break that we get.
And you started, you kind of started, you started talking about the next question. So I'm going to go ahead and jump into that as far as the student athlete is concerned. Because my question to you, Mike, is as a coach that deal a lot with student athletes during the school year, it sounds like outside of the school year also, does them being an athlete make them more mentally prepared or mentally susceptible to issues of anxiety and stuff like that? And it sounds like they're most susceptible to anxiety and stress because of everything that they're thinking about as far as being an athlete and trying to maintain that status of being an athlete, stand on the field, stand on the court. So can you kind of elaborate on that? Do they have are they more susceptible to mental, depression or anything like that? Because I would think that they would be more able to handle issues when it comes to mental health because of the discipline that's taught to them, the structure that's taught to them as far as being an athlete is concerned. So go ahead and school me, clear it up for me. Just
I kind of think it's a double-edged sword. I think some of the adversity that they face on the field or on the court or on the track or whatever the sport may be kind of prepares them to deal with failure a little better, especially I coach baseball. So what we teach our kids each and every day, and we say it so much they're probably tired of hearing it, is baseball is a game of failure. I think amongst the major American sports, baseball is the only sport where you can fail 7 out of 10 times. And if you do that for your entire career, you'll become a Hall of Famer at the highest level. So as a hitter, if you go 3 for 10, you bat 300. If you follow baseball at all, especially in this day and age where strikeouts are so high, there's very few baseball players batting 300 nowadays. So that kind of makes them a little more resilient and deal with some of the adversity a little better. But on the flip side, being a student athlete also brings its own challenges as well and creates some more opportunities for a kid to become depressed or deal with anxiety. I think the challenges of balancing both the classroom and what you do on or off on the court or on the field or on the track or whatever sport you specialize in, it's kind of challenging even for an adult to balance. I can say for student athletes in college, a lot of them deal with the challenges of balancing the classroom with the field. But in high school, you have a lot of students who play multiple sports. You have kids who run track and play football or run track and play basketball or softball or baseball. And that means they really don't get a break throughout the school year to where they can actually just go home when the bell rings at 2:35 or 3 o'clock or whatever the case may be, and go home and focus on their books. They're always going to have weights in the morning. They're always going to have 2 hours of practice after school. Then they have to focus on their nutrition. So it makes them more susceptible to dealing with more adversity. I can say honestly, it works both ways. Again, like the challenge they deal with on Friday nights or on Tuesday nights helps them become more resilient, but also looking at, hey, I need to make sure I keep my batting average up, or I need to make sure I average 25 points a
Mm.
night and 10 rebounds, or I have to run a 45 in the 400. Those challenges create more adversity because a lot of these student athletes in their mind, they're chasing a scholarship, not only in the classroom, but in their sport. So that it creates a huge challenge. But again, it's all about how we prepare and the conversations that we have with our student athletes that can help them.
Okay, that's a good point. Thank you so much. That I can see how that could be a double-edged sword. I can see how that can be a double-edged sword. Okay, so our time is being spent wisely, but I still have like a couple of more questions to do. But I'm only going to ask one more question, and then I'm going to give you. I want you guys to just kind of give your thoughts um, about this as we begin to close out. And I kind of want to focus on advising parents, if we can do that. How do parents kind of prepare their children about starting the new school year? How do they approach them in this? Are they asking questions? How are you mentally? Are you ready? How can parents approach children about starting this new school year to kind of relieve some of that anxiety of beginning again after school break? How do they do that? If y'all want to give some advice, or what would you recommend being on the inside of the school, or in this inside of the four walls of a school? How would you recommend that to parents? Sharon, let's start with you.
One thing that I want to say to parents is just because your child is in high school does not mean that they don't need your involvement. A lot of times it's like, oh, they're in high school now. I don't need to be as involved. I don't need to contact the teacher. I don't need to go to events. I don't need to be there. Your child needs you just like they needed you in elementary, in high school. So don't feel as if you don't need to be as involved with your child. Keep that open line of communication with your child constantly. If COVID didn't teach us anything, family is everything. And so we have to make sure that we're prioritizing our families, our children over, whatever career climb we're trying to have, or whatever other obstacles may come in our way. So keep that line of communication open and do not feel like you do not need to be there. Be that parent volunteer, be on the PTO, be on the booster club. Your students still need you. Just because they're older does not mean that they still not your baby.
That's it. Who wants to chime in this? I'm just going to go ahead and let this flow into not only talking about what parents can do to help kids transition, but just go ahead and flow from that into giving your thoughts on uh you know the mental awareness within classrooms and within a campus. So just go ahead, Sabrina, if you want to go next, go ahead. I'm just going to go across Sabrina and Jasmine, and then Coach Mike will
My
close
thought
us
on
out.
that is yes, I agree with Dr. Sharon there. Our parents in high school have got to be involved, not and be engaged. As teachers, we ask those questions, and one of the as a parent, as a child development teacher, a lot of times I ask when we talk. That is our first standard as we talked about parenting, and I ask the question: how many of you still um, eat dinner at the dinner table with your parents? Maybe one or two out of 20 some students. How many of you see your parents before you go to bed? Not that many. So not only they're not present at school, but they're not being present in the home. So when they come to school, we're getting the best that they have. They're sending us their best, and we're getting the best that they come as they come to us each day. Um, and they do come with all kinds of problems. So we cannot judge these students as they come into our classroom, or what kind of, because we don't know what happened at home before they got to us. But there again, as teachers, we got to be compassionate, not only to the students, but also to their parents. But parents have got, especially in high school, I remember so many times, and Janet know, with our parents, with our mom, especially because our dad was, he was a minister, a pastor. So our mom, it was 8 of us, and our mama would got one off and go get the other, but she was always there for us. And that made the biggest difference. We thought our parents was the meanest parents in the community. Little did we know, as we got to be adults, that all the children in the neighborhood wanted parents like our parents.
Mm-hmm.
So, and that is parents, that's true love. That's love unconditional. Sometimes our parents have too much condition for our children. Teachers have too much condition. If you do this, I'll do that. Here, Billy Bob, here's your piece of candy. Susie's not going to get a piece because she didn't do that assignment that I told her to do. And we don't know what happened to Susie, why she didn't do that assignment. Something could have happened at home, but communication is everything. We have to have an open communication with the students. We have to have communication and dialogue with the parents, and we have to work together as a community for these children. And it is because we in high school we see that we do not have a lot now in the
I can't hear you, Sabrina. I can't hear you, Sabrina. I can't hear you.
and then in the
There you
community,
go.
okay, when there's a football game, baseball game, our parents are out there. That's my child. That's my child. But you can hear some of the worst comments from the parent if that child is not performing like they think they should perform on the field. They have some. You can hear some of the negative comments. You need some. They become the coach from the stadium. So but we have got to always understand that our children, what God gave us, and He gave them to us for us to take care of them to the best of our ability, and to make sure that we don't abuse them. And abuse comes in various forms. So that verbal abuse, you can't take it back. But we have got to have open communication and open dialogue with our children and our parents, and parents have to vice versa have open communication and dialogue with their children. Ask them every day, how was your day? They just don't know how
Mm-hmm.
that means to that child. How was your day? And don't let it was good
Mm-hmm.
before. It was so good about your day. Keep asking the open-ended questions. So that's my thought.
There you go. All right, go ahead, Jasmine. You want to go in and chime in?
Yeah, I think a lot of what resonated with me was the huge decline I saw from elementary to high school was family engagement or parent engagement and following up on grades or, what your child's doing. When we try to contact home, it's barely even a word back. Like, yes,
Mm-hmm.
you have to contact us back on some things, and that's when you get them when it's like a dire situation. But some of the stuff can be avoided if family engagement, parent engagement is done on the front end instead on the back end after something happens, like grades are slipping, or involved in a fight in school, just all kind of behavioral issues that could be avoided. I try to take should out of my vocabulary, um, because there's a lot of things that we feel like parents should be doing. I know a lot of students and parents and family in my community or school district are of low socioeconomic status. So a lot of them are working 2 jobs, and both parents will do that, or it's only one parent in the household. Sometimes these high school students are the ones that are working a job as well and going to school. I even had one who was doing a full-time job and barely coming to school. Um, so like these things happen, and you contact home. at the most, you want them to care, like what's going on with your child, like caring about your child's education and their well-being, making sure their needs are being met, just as much as we're doing that. I feel like what could happen is having that feelings check-in, a feelings and a grade check-in. Like just letting your student know that, hey, I'm here if you need to talk about anything because things come up throughout the whole school year. Just letting them know that, hey, I'm open to discussing things and parents actually being open because we're dealing, like, dealing with high school. So it's a lot more up there on what could happen. Like we're dealing with substance use, we're dealing with relationships, we're dealing with all kinds of different things that parents may not want to talk about. But having an open conversation with their students can be helpful.
Yeah.
So, and also getting with the school, if you don't know how to use the school system technology on how to check their grades, that way you can check on it progressively before a report card comes out, before
Mhm.
grades are declining. You can see that it's happening, it's a trend. You can ask the school. So being proactive, reaching out, and there's parent nights where you can come and meet the teachers, meet the staff, and learn all of this information.
Okay. Mike, you want to go ahead and chime in?
I think they both touched on good points. I think my biggest fear when I was a student, honestly, was my coach and my mom. But the only reason I really had it wasn't a true fear. It was just I didn't want to let them down. It was really my mom, just because she was involved. So, if my best thing and advice for parents as we get ready to go back to school, is just try to be your students or your child's best cheerleader. Advocate for them when they need to be advocated for, and be involved. I think we talked about. Having students raise their hand for who actually sits at the dinner table and eats with their family. That was something that was mandatory in my household. Grew up in a single parent household with my mother, and we would either watch Jeopardy or watch the news while we ate dinner. But we also conversed at the dinner table. We had deep
Mhm.
conversations about how our day was, how's life going, and it wasn't just did you have a good day. Like even now, I try to be as intentional as I can, and my wife does as well with our two children. And we ask them questions like, "What was your favorite part of the day?" or "What was something that happened today that you didn't like?" or "Was there a conflict that you had to resolve?" And this is even with the 5-year-old. Now, my 3-year-old kind of struggled with it, but my 5-year-old, I think, is pretty emotionally mature to be a 5-year-old, and he can answer those questions to the best of his ability. Now, is it the way I expect him to answer as a high school student? No, but I think if you create norms and you're intentional and you have a plan as a parent on what you're going to do with your student, I think you can reach a lot of goals with that, and you can alleviate some of the unknown.
Mm.
So I think a lot of times, and I really struggled with this as a teacher when I was first starting at special education. Just even with the general population students, I had a morning duty in the cafeteria. Students would first enter the building, and I would say good morning to each and every student. And I remember one of my first days, I chased down a kid, and I was kind of, and I feel bad now because I was kind of combative with the student, but I chased down the kid because the kid didn't tell me good morning back. And the more I teach, the more I understand that every household isn't the same. Some of these students
Mm.
aren't having conversations with their parents. Some of these students are literally walking in the house, dropping their bag, if they even brought a bag to school, and going to their room and going about their day. So we can't we can't expect, again, the perfect world scenario where there's two parents in the household and they have a great dinner set before them when they get home, and they're sitting down and doing their homework with their parents. Some of these kids, like we said, have jobs. I've had baseball players have to quit because they have to go work to help the family. So us as
Mhm.
educators, and hopefully as parents, even if you are a parent who's in a situation where economically you're not necessarily above the poverty line, or you don't have a surplus of money and you have to work multiple jobs, do the best that you can to be intentional. I think one of the greatest joys that I see, and also one of the greatest letdowns, is when we have senior night at our high schools for athletics. And for me, in years past, I've had to walk some of my baseball players down the aisle for student night, and it really hurts my heart because I can just put myself in their shoes and understand that, hey, you worked for 4 hard years, and this is the one night where you get recognized as a senior. And whether it's by choice or by force, your parents were unable to make it. And then I can also look to my left and to my right and see how excited the students are whose mom, dad, aunt, grandmother, no matter who shows up for their family, those kids are excited because they're being recognized as seniors. They're being recognized for their 4 hard years of work, and they're spending that time with family. So parents, if you could, whether you're a grandmother raising a child, whether you're aunt, uncle, godfather, it doesn't matter, godparent, just try to be the biggest cheerleader and the biggest advocate for these kids as they get ready to matriculate through the school year.
That was really good. I think, first of all, I want to say thank you all for being part of this conversation, and having this type of dialogue, and hearing from the teachers and the administrators, as far as what you see in your classroom and what you see as your school and dealing with these students. I hope it opens up conversations at home, because I believe with everything within our community, it still takes a village to help a child get through school. There's so much going on. Mike, he made a point where it's not always going to be the perfect scenario where you have a two-parent household. You got parents out there that are single mothers or single fathers that's got to work 10 or 11 hours. I believe, and this is just my opinion, if you gave 30 minutes a day to sit and just have a conversation with your child, you will learn a whole lot. And that's going to ease the pain of that child going back to school, or that's going to ease the pain of that child, getting up the next morning to go to school, to face all the other adversities, because that person knows that they got somebody at home that now I know that I can go and talk to about any and everything that's going on with me. It's going to start kind of decreasing some of the numbers that we're seeing here when it comes to burnout and depression, anxiety, and suicide ideation, and the attempt in suicide. I'm a firm believer in that it starts at home. The conversation has to start at home. Teachers, you guys are awesome at what you're doing, because it's like Sharon was saying, your teachers, your EMTs, your lawyers, your doctors, you're everything to these students at the time that you have them. But then whenever they go home, they still need to feel that so that they can come back the next day and face the trials and tribulations of what they're going to have at school, and deal with whatever they're going to deal with at school. So thank you all for being part of this conversation. We want to see this school year 2023 to 2024, right? Yeah, 2023 to 2024. We want to see it be better than what it was from 2022 to 2023. We want to see these numbers go down. We want to see our children, participating more in school with different things, graduating with high academics, because their mental health has been checked and is in a better place. So thank you all for your advice. Thank you for the conversation. I definitely appreciate it. To everybody that is online, I hope that you guys got something out of this conversation that we had, that you can carry at home if you have children, and if you can carry it back to campus if you are a teacher, and parents that you can talk to your children about whenever they come home and they drop their book packs down, instead of them going to their room, say, hey, sit down, let's have a conversation. You can play that PlayStation 5 after conversation, after homework, after dinner. Okay. So thank you again. I definitely appreciate y'all. We're going to end this broadcast. Y'all, it lasted 15 minutes longer than I said, but it was good. It was good conversation. I appreciate it. So everybody online, we're into this broadcast. You can always go to, if you know anyone that is dealing with any kind of mental health issue, if you go to itsmindboggling.com and go to resources, you will find a lot of flyers and brochures out there about anxiety, about depression, and even issues with, that teenagers face when it comes to depression, suicide. Different articles out there that you can download, print off, or that you can use to just start a conversation at home. The website is mindboggling.com, and then you just go out there to resources, and you can find all of those resources out there that you can use for home, school, whatever the case may be. Download it, utilize it. Let's start taking these conversations outside of the four walls of home, and let's start having these conversations at home. I'm gonna end this broadcast. Thank y'all for joining. I definitely appreciate y'all. Don't y'all hang up down there. All the panelists, don't y'all hang up. But I'm going to end the broadcast. Thank you guys for jumping on. I appreciate that. And yeah, let's go out and start having conversations beyond the walls of home about mental health awareness and wellness.